everyone. My name is Carrie Gardy. I'm the director of the KU Career Development Center. This presentation is on successful interviewing. It is following the job search presentation, so hopefully you've seen that one, and now you're moving on to interviews. It is for graduating seniors, so congratulations. So let's talk about why we interview. This slide's really important. Employers, all industries are asking themselves these three questions. Can you do the job? If they believe you can, you will be invited to interview. The reason we interview is for them to answer the next two questions. Will you do the job, and what can you add to our team? So those are the questions that are hard to figure out and understand, and you need to meet that person, online or in person in order to be able to answer that. Do you have a good work ethic? Do you have the right attitude? Why are you interested in this position? All the types of questions that we ask is the only way to figure that out beyond a LinkedIn profile and a resume. And then you have the opportunity in any interview to sell yourself and determine if this is the job that you want. And obviously, your goal is to get an offer. Interviewing is a very important skill to have. It is something that can be practiced, you can get feedback on, and you can get better at it. Some people are naturally better at interviewing than others, but all of us can be excellent at it because it is a skill, just like throwing a football. Some of us might be naturally better at it, but we can all learn, improve our form, get feedback from a coach, and do better and better every time we do it. It is also a cycle, meaning you will not get first dream job after first interview and stay there until your 60s, right? We interview many times throughout our lives, and hopefully every time you go on an interview, you get better and better at it and realize what you need to improve. And then that helps you with the next interview, which is also why we have on this slide necessary. On average, it takes about 250 resumes to land an interview. Obviously, that's an average, but the point is, it is work finding work. It is work to just research employers, apply for openings, inquire about positions. And then when you finally land an interview, you want to be a rock star and do as well as you can in that interview because it takes a lot of work and effort just to get there. So 4 to 6 interviewees out of 250 plus applications. So, but only one gets an offer. So again, we want you to be confident and ready to go. So let's talk about how you prepare for an interview. The first step is what I call, let's take a step back before we move forward slide, and that is to assess yourself. Really understand your brand, what you can provide that employer. And we talk about that during the job searching presentation. But really think about what have you learned over these years at Kutztown? What are your skills and abilities gained from classes, projects, and then, of course, certainly campus involvement, community involvement, jobs, internships. Think about the skills and abilities that you bring in addition to knowledge. Interests and values. Why did you choose that major? Why are you interested in this industry? Why are you interested in this position or this organization? What's important to you as far as a work environment? And then think about those educational experiences you've had at KU. Think about your favorite courses and why, different projects that you've worked on. Maybe some of you have a minor, a concentration, or a dual major. So be ready to talk about what you've learned or gained from those experiences. And then, of course, any related experience or even not related, because we all gain transferable skills, even if it was a job, and I say this lovingly and jokingly, but a part-time cheesy job to pay the bills, you still learned amazing skills, strength and qualities from those experiences. But prepare your stories on how to emphasize or show them that you have the skills they're looking for. So think about, oh, okay, that happened last summer at my job. That would be a great example of problem solving. That would be a great example of teamwork. The fact that I do this would be evidence of knowledge of this. So be ready to tell the story and share that to prove your skills and knowledge. And then career goals and direction, common question employers ask, where do you see yourself in 3 to 5 years? What are your long-term career goals? What are you hoping to get out of this position? And then the next step is confirm. So don't assume you have one interview. It's going to take 20 minutes with one person. If indeed you are going, well, I'm getting ahead of myself. Confirm the date and time. Confirm the location if indeed you are going there in person. And then driving or commuting time. I always say if Google Maps says it takes an hour to get there, don't leave an hour and a half before, because you really should be walking in quarter of 10 minutes to the interview. So let's say you walk in 15 minutes before. That only gives you, if you left an hour and a half, 15 minutes of wiggle time for traffic, construction, finding the place, parking, maybe stopping in the restroom. So give yourself plenty of time. You never want to be late for an interview. And then, assess where am I parking? And then, of course, ask, what can I expect as far as the interview schedule? Whom would I be interviewing with? And then you can do your research too. If you get some names, look them up on LinkedIn. So confirm the details. Make sure you have what you need to prepare and be ready for that interview. The biggest piece is research. This slide I call the don't insult the employer slide. One of the first questions that they commonly ask is, so let's begin by you telling us a little bit about yourself. And then what do you know about our organization? And if you respond, I'm sorry, I've had such a busy week, I didn't really have a chance to look at your website, not good. That is insulting to them. So research, look up and learn as much as you can about the organization and have a good understanding, even to be able to ask them questions. Well, I saw this on your website. Can you tell me more about it? That is very impressive. Employers want to hire someone who really wants the job, who isn't just doing it, as a stopgap or to get benefits, but they want someone who's really committed and interested in them as well. So it's a mutually beneficial relationship. The other part of preparation is to practice interviewing. And so right now, thousands of people across the country are interviewing, and they did not do this, and they will not fare as well as if they could. So practice interviewing, anticipate the questions and answer them out loud. That's important. You're not going to, I encourage you not to sit on your bed in your apartment and read through a list of questions and think about how you would answer them. Actually, practice them out loud the way you would in an interview. Get someone to help you. The Career Center can help you. And the other thing to keep in mind is many of you will have virtual interviews. Maybe a final interview will be in person. It may never be in person. So really become comfortable with looking into the camera, having a good space to do so, and just really become comfortable and confident with that aspect of it. But get feedback. So you are graduating or have graduated, if you're looking at this post-graduation. We do have Mock Interview Mania every semester where we bring employer volunteers in to give you feedback. You can do that on your own. You can reach out to, an aunt, an uncle, a cousin, someone who does a lot of interviewing and say, can I do a practice interview? I want you to give me feedback on how I've done. You can also go to Big Interview. There's the URL to do so. That's a website that we subscribe to that is really amazing. It has an AI component where it can assess your interview and give you feedback on filler words and posture and answer content. So check out Big Interview. You can do many, many, many interviews over and over again to get practice and feedback and become more comfortable and confident. Another piece to pay attention to is how you present yourself professionally. Um, this is not a we are not talking about a beauty contest. We are talking about, are you appropriately dressed, groomed, and accessorized? I hope you took advantage of the career closet while you were a student, but do pay attention to dress. And you can never go wrong. You can never be overdressed for an interview, right? So what I like to say is, throughout this entire search process, you're probably interacting, just totally making an assumption here, but probably interacting with people who are older than you, and then just make the assumption, therefore, more conservative than you, more traditional. So if you're interviewing for a full-time professional position, it is likely that you will be expected to have a suit on. That means a jacket, not just a shirt or blouse, or a shirt and tie. But it depends. It depends on your industry. But I would err on the conservative traditional side once you get the job. Even if the person across from you is in jeans and a t-shirt, you haven't gotten to that point that you're able to do that, to wear that, until you're in the role. And then you can see what the expectations are and have conversations about it. But until then, be more traditional and conservative and pay attention to it. All right, so all of those things, I'm going to go back here. Assessing yourself, being confident, ready to talk about you, your strengths and stories and examples, confirming the details of the interview, understanding with whom you are interviewing, practice answering the questions out loud, and I'm going to get to questions in a couple slides, and paying attention to your professional presentation. Those are all pieces that you should be paying attention to before you are face to face with an employer for an interview, before you get to the introductions. And hopefully paying attention to those will make you feel all the more confident and ready to go. All right, so now you're there. As I mentioned, arrive early, firm handshake. We have elbow bump wave during COVID times, but certainly still, some people are still uncomfortable with shaking hands. But it is still the expectation in business. Good posture, shoulders back, smile, speak clearly and slowly. Especially if you're nervous, you might have a tendency to talk much more quickly than you normally would. You would know that if you've done practice interviews, if you've recorded on Big Interview. So try to slow down and enunciate perhaps better than you normally do. Types of questions. Every employer, of course, is asking questions. There are two different types. One is general, and it really just are those get to know you questions, but really it's collecting the information that they need. So here's an example of some of them. Tell me about yourself. Why are you interested? Describe your coursework. And strengths and weaknesses. So be ready for that. Have 3 of each. They might only ask for 2, but have 3. Tie them to the position for which you are interviewing. You might have a strength in another area that they might not be that interested in. Weaknesses. When you share a weakness, you always want to give examples of both strengths and weaknesses, but when you give a weakness, you share it as if you're aware of it. You're working on it, you've made adjustments. It's almost like you don't have it anymore, or it's something you pay attention to, so you don't have it. An example I like to give is, in an interview, you wouldn't say, well, I'm late all the time, because who's going to hire you? What you would say is, in college, I ran into some challenges of being late. So what I learned to do is not overcommit, set my alarm 10 minutes early, give myself reminders, whatever it is that you have done to work to alleviate that weakness. Behavioral-based questions are, as the second bullet says, examples of your past behavior. The story you tell, the example you give, predicts your future behavior. So describe an experience when you worked with a difficult person. Tell me about a large-scale project that you completed. What were the challenges? What were How did you approach a large scale project? The last one, give me an example of a time where you demonstrated leadership. So the story you tell is a good indicator to them of how you will work in the future. And that is a very good interview. Now, when you're answering these, I might be getting ahead on the slides. So, all right, I'll wait for the next slide. Inappropriate and legal questions. Here's a list of questions that they should not be asking you for your age, your race, your marital status, any of these on the list. What do you do if you are asked an illegal and or inappropriate question? It's really your choice. You can respond. It doesn't bother you. You can decline to answer. You can say, well, I'm not sure how that relates to the position. And, I'm really not comfortable answering that. That's fine. And then third bullet here, ask yourself how the question relates to the job and if there's an underlying issue they're trying to address. So if any of that comes up, you can try to respond to that issue. Maybe it has to do with relocation and they inappropriately ask you, based on the fact that you have an engagement or wedding ring or band on, will your husband or wife, which is an assumption right there, be are they fine relocating? That is inappropriate, and you can decline to answer. It's really up to you. And you have to ask yourself, is this person just ill-experienced, not trained to interview? Sometimes that happens when it's a manager and not a human resources professional. You can ask yourself, does this person really represent the organization? I mean, they certainly do if they're interviewing, but maybe just because they asked an illegal and or inappropriate question, is this a reflection of the entire organization? Am I still interested in the position? So you have to ask yourself that question. All right, tips for answering in general. Be confident and assertive. Seems silly to type that, but fake it till you make it. Everybody's nervous in interviewing. They know you're nervous. Sometimes they're nervous interviewing. So just be confident. And I really want you to view interviewing as an amazing opportunity. Yes, they want to interview me. They read my resume or application. They probably went online and looked at my LinkedIn profile, and they're interested in getting to know me better. They think that I probably can do the job. They're trying to answer those other two questions. Will you do the job? And what will you add to the team? So go into an interview feeling very confident and feeling excited that you have the opportunity to have a conversation with a recruiter or manager. So show enthusiasm, positive attitude, watch your grammar, pay attention to slang or sloppy articulation. The only way to be aware of that is to practice, record, and get feedback. But that can really take away from showing them that you're a smart cookie, that you're educated and professional. So pay attention to that. Make sure you understand the question and take a few seconds to respond. It is very okay to pause when they ask you a question, gather your thoughts, and give an answer. It is much better to have that quick pause than to say, after every question they ask, because that would become annoying to them. If you don't know the answer, it happens. You could say, I'm not sure, but I'll do the research after this interview and email you with the answer tomorrow. Love that one. How about, I don't know, but this is what I would do to find out. It shows them you're committed, you're dedicated, you're curious, and again, educated, and you're a learned individual, and we'll figure it out. Don't ramble, be clear and concise. I will say that the next bullet, don't be too quick or vague, is probably the more common mistake. When we are interviewing and we're nervous, we tend to be much shorter in our answers. Some people do go on and on. You need to be aware of which one you are if you're one of the two. But really, the most common one is being really vague and quick to answer and not giving enough detail. So remember, they weren't at that internship or job. They haven't taken classes in years. So be succinct, but be detailed in your answers. Typical responses can take about 1 minute per answer. And there it is, the last bullet, include concrete, detailed, quantifiable data. So a good interviewer is not going to say, "Are you a good leader?" Because of course everyone's going to say yes. They're going to say, again, behavioral based, "Give me an example of a leadership role you were in and some challenges you had in that position." So be ready with success stories, stories that show that you've reflected on what happened and this is what you've learned or gained from that experience. Don't dwell on negative experiences and what you don't have. You should never say, nor in a cover letter, "Well, I don't have this, but," right? Don't emphasize what you don't have. They know what your weak areas are, or just you don't have that experience yet. You're starting out in your career, so don't put any spotlight on that. Find the positives of each experience and what you learned or gained. Focus on the qualifications you do have, even if you're missing some the employer is looking for. Also, and I hope I mentioned this in the job searching presentation, but employers shoot for the moon, right? Like they might list 20, 30 things they're looking for. They might say that they want someone with 2 to 4 years experience and you have a 3 month internship, for example. Apply. Let them be the one to tell you no. Sometimes they ask for these things. They're hoping they have a candidate who has all of them, but that is very unlikely. So if you have some of them and you show them it's a great fit, you're driven to learn and you're excited to start, that you're committed, you have a great work ethic, you're going to be a rock star for them, they will hire you. Bring some notes for yourself. So you're not to take notes in an interview, but you might want to have a couple notes, some things you want to emphasize. That is perfectly okay. And you can, have your Padfolio or notebook in front of you. Of course, if you're interviewing online, definitely right there in front of you. And you can reference that when needed. Here's the STAR method, and this is how you answer a behavioral based question. You need to be succinct and detailed. So describe the situation or task. This one time at my job, this happened, and maybe it was a negative or challenging experience. And then they want to know what action you took. So what I did is this. This is what I ended up doing. And then what resulted. So from this experience, or this happened, this is what transpired. My boss said this, my colleague and I did this, and we realized we needed to make a change in the training procedure, for example. So when you answer a behavioral based question, you're telling a story or giving an example. If you use the STAR method, you're giving a very succinct, detailed, great answer. So remember the STAR method when telling stories. Okay, also remember interviewing is a two-way street. You are assessing them as well. What do you need to know in order to make an informed decision? Always have questions prepared. Do not insult them. If I'm interviewing you and I say, "Okay, that's all the questions I have for you. What questions do you have for me?" And you're like, I think you covered everything." Not good. How can you not have questions? You might be spending 40, 50, 60 hours a week with these people. So get ready, typically 3 to 5 questions. Not questions you should know the answer to. Remember, the pre-interview preparation included employer research, but questions that you're curious about, maybe some cultural questions. A great one is always of the people you're interviewing with. What do you enjoy about the organization? How long have you been here? How do you work with this position? What makes for a successful employee in this position or at the organization? So always be ready with 3 to 5 questions. It shows you're engaged, excited, intelligent, and thorough. It shows you've done your homework. Here are 2 more. On your website, you mentioned a mentoring program. Can you tell me more about it? I love that one because it shows that you've actually done your research about them. How would my work directly impact the organization? Great question. Do not ask questions about salary, vacation, and retirement. Those are questions upon offer. Don't accept an offer without understanding not just salary, but vacation and retirement. but definitely not a question to be asked in the hiring interview. All right, now we're at the closing of the interview. Be quick and courteous, express your interest. This is important. I interviewed 2 candidates, both are great. One candidate asked 2 questions, one candidate asked 4, and they're pretty insightful, great questions. And then the first candidate doesn't express their interest, doesn't ask about follow-up. But you're the second candidate and you say, I'm really interested. It was so great getting to know you. I'm even more interested now that I know more about you and the organization. And then ask, what happens next? When can I expect to hear from you? How or when will I be notified? Even if you're not sure, maybe you're interviewing and you're like, I'm not really sure about this. It's not the opportunity I thought it was. The people don't seem happy. I learned some things that aren't going to work for me. Whatever it might be, just act like you're still interested. If you get an offer, you can always turn it down, but always stay engaged and excited. I also spoke to a student not too long ago who interviewed and wasn't really interested, but they ended up coming back to her with a different role that fit better for her. So she was glad that she, sent the thank you note and showed them positiveness, even though during the interview she's like, I don't know if this is the right position for me. Get a business card again if you're in person, firm handshake, and then send a thank you email. The majority of people interviewing today across the country are going to forget to send a thank you email. You want to be in that minority and you want to send it that day, the next day. Include any important information you forgot. So maybe you're, driving home, or, you're on the train, or, you disconnect in your home and you're like, wow, they asked a lot of questions about research. I'm not sure I really talked about my research experience as much as I could have. Maybe I'll add a sentence about that. I noticed you asked several questions about this. I wanted to draw your attention to this. That extra sentence in a thank you email could be the differentiator to get you the position. Reiterate your strengths and enthusiasm, and then process it. So remember I said it's cyclical interviewing. So process it. What went well? What question did they ask? And you gave an amazing answer. You pulled it out of the depths of your brain. You're like, "Ooh, that was beautiful." What question did they ask that you kind of stumbled on, or you didn't have a great answer? You could have said this instead of that. So think about it. Jot down before it leaves your brain. Jot down the questions that they asked and how you can come up with a stronger answer for next time. You might be invited back to the same organization with somebody else, or you might not get the opportunity. Don't take it personally. Easy to say, I know, but maybe they found someone who just has a little bit more experience, who has, a minor in an area that they're interested in, and you were a rock star, but you didn't have that minor. So just view it as it wasn't a good fit. There's another opportunity out there for me. This one wasn't it, and I'm bummed, but I'm going to keep at it. And you're going to even be better at interviewing the next time because you've had some practice. And the last 2 slides here to wrap up this presentation are special situations with phone interviews. So keep your notes in front of you and just try to sound as enthusiastic as you would look in person. And obviously more common would be video, Zoom, team interviews. So make sure there's no interruptions. Download the software well in advance. I know a student who assumed it was going to be Zoom, and 10 minutes before the interview, it was a software program that he had to download, and he was a minute late for his interview. Sit up straight, dress professionally, and test your connection, speakers, and sound beforehand. Not on the slide, but I do want to mention, use AI. We encourage students to use it in your job and internship search. what you can do is upload your resume, remove your identifying information, upload your resume, upload the position description. You can even upload company information, and you could say, I'm applying for this job. Here's my resume. What questions can I expect the organization to ask me based on this job? And then, based on my resume and my experience, what answers could I give? And take a look at what it provides you. Obviously, make sure it's accurate, correct. It needs to sound like you, but use it as a tool to help you be better prepared with interviewing. Okay, good luck, everybody.